Great. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm David Garson with Advanced Partners. We've got a great webinar in store for you today. Diversify Yourself as a Supplier, presented by Erik Thornberg. Before we get started, my colleague Erica has a couple housekeeping items to go over. Erica?
Thanks, David, and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar. A couple housekeeping items to help the event go smoother for you. First off, this webinar is being recorded. If you have a question for our speaker, please use the Ask a Question widget located at the bottom of your console. A survey is going to launch at the conclusion of the event. We hope you will take a few moments to complete it. We appreciate all the feedback you have, as it will help us fine-tune these events for the future. And lastly, if you experience any technical issues with the platform, please use the help widget shaped like a question mark, also located at the bottom of your console. Back to you, David, to introduce our speaker.
Thanks, Erica. I am pleased to introduce a friend, Erik Thornberg, a seasoned expert in the contingent workspace with over 20 years of experience. Erik has a proven track record of helping clients achieve remarkable sales and operational results through innovative strategies and practical approaches. Today, he will share valuable insights to enhance your sales performance. Erik is also available for consulting, so please feel free to contact him after the presentation. Erik, it's all you.
Great. Thank you very much for the nice introduction, David, and good to see you live here today. So the topic today is really diversify yourself as a supplier. And in order to give you some background first about myself, then I want to go through the objectives, very quick disclaimer, and then really start of the art of the start, how an MSP works and why that is important for you to know. So as David said, I've been in the business for a little bit over 2 decades, predominantly working with business turnarounds, sales optimization, and operations efficiency. The meeting today and the presentation will be about 45 minutes. And as said, I will go over how an MSP works, 12 clear steps how to grow a business, and to make sure that you can do that in a very structured order and also measure where you have gaps. And then enable you with some hands-on tools that you can use as well. So before we get into the presentation, just take a couple of seconds to read this. And it's just to make sure that everybody understands that Paychex is not responsible for the accuracy of the content being provided in this presentation today. Okay, so if we get into the basics, how an MSP works, and this is very important because I meet a lot of suppliers that are saying, why can't we do it this way or that way? And they ending up being part of the problem and not the solution. And over time, in worst case scenarios, they're being kicked out and cannot get back in. So the MSP team really helps with shortlisting and verification. They engage any contractor and they handle all contract management when it comes to compliance, onboarding, quality management, etc. The hiring managers are essentially going to the MSP team, assuring that everyone that is in the program will get the request simultaneously and will be competing against each other. So you have the suppliers on the other side and the MSP in between, of course. The requisitions are then going through the MSP team that qualifies them, sends them out to the suppliers, who then return resumes, and the qualified resumes, which are a little bit less than usually the number that are coming in, is then going directly to the hiring managers so they can pick and choose. Sometimes when you have an MSP that have been working for many years, the hiring managers are simply asking the MSP team to place an individual at a certain location or logging in at 8 a.m. Monday morning because they know the culture so well. But usually when it starts and you have a new MSP, this is essentially how it works 90% of the time. Hiring managers let the MSP know who they would like to interview, and the MSP team coordinates that interview with the suppliers or the consultant, him or herself. After that, the hiring manager does a selection, and there is an engagement coordination, and everything is underpinned by a vendor management system that really has a lot of business intelligence and KPIs. And we will get back to that a little bit later, why it's so important for you to understand how the MSP is perceiving you in a delivery and what they're usually looking at. Now, in essence, I've just given you a 3-4 minute run through how an MSP works in the simplest of ways. The main objective why companies are getting an MSP is because they want to have everything standardized. The contracts, the payment terms, decreased risks, etc. So sometimes when suppliers are working directly with a client and then they're asked to be onboarded to an MSP, they are essentially trying not to do that and give excuses and reasons for why they should not be part of the MSP. They might have a very advanced developers. They might do something different. My general suggestion is try not to go against the MSP. I would rather be part of the solution as quickly as possible, because that's going to give you more business over time. Okay, so when we look at how you can grow your business, I put forward 12 steps. And the first part is really focusing on what you're doing. Then I'm going to get into understanding the MSP a little bit more, the differences and the nuances of the MSPs, and then also how you can capitalize on the structure that is at hand. So the first top 5 mistakes that we are seeing when we're working and are buying resources and talent is that almost every company, I would say at least 90%, is way too general. They say that they can do anything as a supplier. They're more opportunistic. They're not strategic. They don't have an individual value compared to many others. They do not really stand out. As a consequence of that, if you don't really have a clear value statement and a clear value proposal, it's going to be very hard to get into an MSP. So if you are too general, if you say that you can do anything and you're opportunistic and not strategic, which again is about 90% of the companies out there, you're not going to be able to bring forward a very clear value statement and a value proposal. And I'm giving you a tool today how you can optimize your value statement and your value proposal. But these are really the top 5 mistakes. And if you're being very focused in doing 1 or 2 things, more business will come to you. I'm certain of that, because it's been proven over and over. Second thing is, the MSP usually have a very specific account structure. Some of them, if we look at Magni today, they have most of their talent acquisition team in India, and very few of them are in the United States today. They're actually, one of the large MSPs lost a multi-billion-dollar deal in Q1 this year because they had all of the talent acquisition offshored. So this really impacts the end client, but it also impacts you, because the question is this team, number one, where does it sit? How are you going to communicate with them? And where do you find the formal and, more importantly, the informal decision makers? The second thing is, how is their sales and talent acquisition centralized? So some of them, they have mapped them up by clients. Others have them by skill sets. So you might have a person in an MSP company that is only looking for Java developers, or only looking for SAP subject matter experts in SAP Fieldglass or Concur or Ariba or what it might be. If you are a focused company, sometimes you have a much higher win probability of seeking out those people directly that are actually very operational and is far from where the tactics and the strategy is happening in that organization and in that MSP. The third thing is, you definitely need to research the end client when it comes to size, the growth that the end client has, and the sector that they're in. That's going to also affect your value statement and value proposition. So if you don't have one here and two, focus on your niche and understand the account structure, you are by no means prepared to speak to an MSP. There is no research that is enough if you haven't done those steps. The third step is about the end client. How mature are they? What is it that they truly need? And how large are they? And what does their 10K say? So things that defines maturity is this: if they have a mandated program globally, they are quite mature. If it's not mandated and it's a Fortune 500 company that works locally, you know that they're not really that mature. So that has some advantages, but also some disadvantages. The advantages of having a mature program is that they know who they need to get a hold of. They're usually looking for specialized companies that are niched in certain areas, and there is a clear process how you're going to be able to onboard with those kinds of MSPs. If they are not mature, you can really be more opportunistic and get opportunities in a more informal manner. So the maturity of the end client really drives your approach to the MSP. Now, the 10K often gives you more information than the MSP knows on many of these clients and what they will do. So if they're public, the 10K gives you an understanding of their business, but also the risk factors that they're looking into in the near future. It clearly discusses their financial statements and also management discussions about their performance and where they will invest and where they will be. So getting a hold of the 10K, which is official information if they're publicly listed, will give you an advantage to see where they're going to be tomorrow. That will give you a huge advantage in order to have discussions, specifically if the end client is not as mature as they should be. So you can go and address them and speak to them informally. Now, the sourcing process is also key. So what is their general workforce strategy and how do they source? We can see a lot of these are, in some areas, they have turned from going to just time and material to almost 100% statement of work. Not because it might necessarily be better for them, but some of them have a perspective that it's less risk, which isn't really the case in the United States. But are they sourcing through statement of work? Are those statement of work mandated as well? Is there a push for D&I? And we can kind of see a difference, the past 3 or 4 months here, that some companies, they are scrapping the D&I, and other companies, they're going much more harder into focus on D&I now, given the political climate that we have in the United States. So this is a key component for you as well, depending on how your company is positioned, right? Is it a 8A company, women-owned business, small minority-owned business, or is it not? And how will that impact your approach and your communication, not only to the MSP, but to the end client? So at this stage, when you have all of these 4 things done and you have a clear picture of both who you are, what your strengths is with your company, how the MSP looks like, if it's the maturity, etc., then you can really go in there and try to land a deal. So landing the deal is really, well, sorry, I'm going to go back and just talk a little bit about this as well. So the reason why I'm bringing up this is because there are a lot of staffing companies that are focusing on MSPs that are going through an MSP like Magnet, Agile One, etc. But if you see on this screen here, you can see that a lot of end clients, they are actually going to focus on an internal managed MSP. So they're going to do it themselves. And that is currently getting into over 50% of the MSPs that are out there. So if you're hunting where everybody else is in a structured MSP format to one of the big MSP providers, Tapfin, Randstad, SourceRight, Magnet, Agile One, etc., your probability might be much less than going to the end client directly that has an internal MSP. So do not exclude that, because that's more than 50% of the market today. And there are some trends and some indications that states that more and more MSPs are going to be done internally compared to externally. Personally, I think we're going to see this going in waves, but the MSP sourcing structure is not becoming more complex. It's becoming less complex. So you can do it internally and save both time and money on doing that if you have the right team. So that's a clear trend that we're seeing as well. And just be mindful of it when you focus on your new prospects. Okay, so those are the steps, really 1 to 4, where if you do that homework, your win probability to expand with the client is going to increase quite a lot. Now, land. So land is landing a deal. And as I said before, you really have to focus, right? If you try to be multi-purpose, you're going to end up being multi-useless. You have to have a very, very specific approach when you're landing the business opportunity. So you need to have a value statement, and that has to be very specific in what you are doing. It cannot be, we are the best one in supplying IT consultants generally and globally, right? And then what is it that you can contribute with in very specific measurable terms? And what will that result in? What is that improvement? And for whom is that improvement? So that's really the statement. You could say, we are specialized in SAP Fieldglass consultants that have over 10 years of experience. It's the only thing that we do. And if we do that, we have seen that our projects, when we do implementations, they have an average of 30%, closing down 30% quicker than any other competitor today. So, and then you have the value proposal. If we would start with proposing or running your project beginning March 1st as a result of what we've said, right? Then you quantify the business improvements that you do, the investment cost, and also when they can get that back or what the consequence is. And it's usually only 3 parameters. You have time savings, cost improvements, and quality improvements, which is also risk mitigation, if there is anything there. So I'm sure all of you already have a value statement and a value proposition that is very appealing, but if you don't, or if you need to refine it, I would use a template such as this one to make sure that you have everything there and that it's verified and that it's good before you're reaching out to the client. So if you have this and you also have done your steps 1 to 5, you are way ahead of the curve for more than 90% of the staffing companies that are out there selling today. And this piece here is actually part of a 2-day sales workshop that I usually do, but I wanted to give you this tool about a value statement and a value proposition because it's one of the things that gives you the highest impact in the lowest amount of time. Okay, so once you have landed a deal, you will be part of the MSP supply as one of many vendors. All of these vendors are measured behind the scenes. So they track you regarding how many resumes that you're sending in, how many of those are actually leading to an interview, how many of those interviews are leading to a placement, what is your average spend on project managers, Java developers, etc. So they're running all of these parameters, which means that you can never really come to an MSP. Well, you can go to an MSP and say, this is actually, you're paying us too little, right? But if they, on the other hand, seeing that they have 6 applications per position and the price is much lower with the competitors, they're not really going to care too much about your statements because they're sitting with essentially the answers behind the scenes. So after 1 month, approximately, once you've been on the program, you should ask for formal feedback. So no matter if you've staffed anyone or not, you want to contact them and say, hey, I would like to see how we stand when it comes to our KPIs in regards to other suppliers. The reason you want to do that is, number one, you want to get an objective opinion about where you truly are. And the second thing is this: you want to see what you're really good at in their perception that you can focus on. And the third thing is this: you want to make sure that you're creating that client intimacy with the MSP, because at the end of the day, unfortunately, they will be your end client. If they like you, they can put you on other programs, etc. Right? So once you have landed, you already are getting requests. You need to make sure that you then get tangible feedback from the MSP itself. And I would start early with that, because some of these MSPs, they have hundreds and hundreds of suppliers. So it will take them time to get back to you in many cases. Now, you will most probably, specifically if this is the first MSP or if it's a new MSP for you, you will probably have gaps because you don't really know how mature their machinery is until you have understood where you are in relation to everybody else through the KPIs. So if you think that there is a problem in your delivery and the MSP says that, well, that's a great opportunity for you to actually get closer to them and address those. Most MSPs, they want to help you succeed. And if you have a good approach with them and a constructive dialogue, they will give you the feedback so you can become better. There are many even contacting the MSPs, so this is a true diversification for you. Now, you have several opportunities, right? Improving your overhead cost. And what I've seen is that a lot of suppliers that are not able to go down on price is because they have a very high overhead cost today. They have too many people doing too little compared to processes that could have been automated, etc. So if the overhead cost is high at your company, it's going to be very, very hard to compete today. You get a close contact with the MSP or the prime vendor. Some of them have prime vendors. We're specifically seeing this in light industrial and blue collar because they need the volume since the margins are so slim there. And once you know the gap, you can address it and you can show the tangible improvement. So in the meeting, you immediately ask and book a next meeting, and you're very clear on what you would like to address in the next meeting. You should have a good sense in the meeting, even if you get the numbers right away, where you will be able to move the needle. So you could most probably commit to some tangible improvements in the first meeting, given that you get a meeting in return. And that's really the iteration, how you build the trust performance expansion for many of these MSPs. Now, once you've done that, you have to reinforce the tangible improvements every week or bi-weekly with the MSP, based it on the success that you're doing, and also create that listening culture within your organization if you don't have it already. And the best way to do it is to view the MSP as the end client. It's really like you are a waiter and they're ordering something and you just have to smile and be very attentive to it. But if you have that listening culture and you've done the 8 previous steps, you should be in a very, very good position. Now, I would encourage you to work with other suppliers as well. And this is why we're seeing a hardening of the competition in the market, and we're seeing more companies are being focused. So who is the competition on the MSP? And are they really a competitor to you? If you're only doing SAP, you might want to connect with somebody that is only a software development supplier, right? So you will never compete, but together you will get more requests and you can help each other expand together. The second thing is this: if you cannot do statement of work, direct sourcing, or if you're not in geography, you can share that intel with another supplier that is not competing with you and build that trust. So, some people have merged companies lately, and others have just bought companies based on new collaborations that I've seen the past 18 to 24 months. So it never really hurts to view some of the other suppliers not as competition, but actually as partners. So you can give a briefing about what you do, and you've mapped out what they do and what they do not do, and that can have a great potential for your company, but also for your sales if you're measured as an individual contributor. The MSP has all the intel in the supply. I mentioned that previous, right? So it's going to be very hard for you to make a statement that this is a scarce resource if it's not. They will see that in their systems right away. And in the United States, Magnet, Randstad, Tapfin, they have between 6,000 to 8,000 suppliers each. So that's really the number of suppliers that is out there today, trying to focus on MSPs and get sales with MSPs. Okay, so once you have landed, then you need to do these steps. Like, you cannot land and then immediately expand. You need to build that credibility with the MSP. So you land, you ask for tangible feedback, you see what gaps you have, you address those, you reiterate back that you've solved them, and you base those steps on the facts that your time to fill has gone down, the number of resources that you've staffed have improved, etc., due to that hard work. Once you've done that, and the MSP is recognizing that you have done that, then you can expand. So one of the most common mistakes is that people land one day and then they try to expand the next day. But there are certain steps in between that will increase your expansion probability. So try to go fast by going slow in a structured manner, and you will be able to build it with a higher success rate. The expansion is really when you're talking to the MSP and are asking them for more business, and why should they work with you? Well, number one, at this point of time, you've already done your homework, so you should know and you have built out the stakeholders that you can speak to. As we said, you also set up those regular meetings for feedback, so they do not only think, they know that there is something there, and it's very tangible what you have done. You research the accounts, the new ones, and you pick one or two and motivate why you want to expand from account A to account B, right? It might be that they're all both in manufacturing, retail, distribution, that you have such a good prices in correlation to the quality that you would like to expand that together with the MSP. So here you go back and look at the feedback that you've gotten before, and you focus on the areas that you're really good. If you don't have a niche, you will start to build one here as well. Your value proposition, you will tweak that for that specific expansion. Bring in as many written references that you have, preferably if they're with the MSP or with the specific end client. And then once you've done 1 to 5 here, then you can propose to be onboarded to the next MSP. Another thing that is quite troublesome for the MSPs, and I know sometimes this is not solvable, but that is a team that they recognize. If you have people leaving that are high performers, that will hurt your business. So I think there are a couple of things. And number one, truly take care of the people in your organization that are high performers. And also, if you go in and you just are landing an MSP, assure that you can be committing to that these people will stay here. I mean, unless force majeure or something that is out of our control happens, right? And then I would set bonuses for high performers yearly or quarterly and never monthly. There are several reasons for that. I mean, one is the administrative cost to it, but the other is also that high performers can leave very, very quickly. But if you have them per quarter or per year, you're not really going to see that frequency of that high of a level generally, right? So there is a disadvantage to it as well. Your cash flow will not come as quickly as many of the salespeople want to, but make sure that this is aligned with the overarching corporate company policy for your company. Okay, so finalizing on this, and just go back in summary to what we discussed. Number one, make sure that you establish a process. You can take the best pieces of these 12 steps here and use that as you please, but you need to have some measurable, tangible process how to win and get more deals. Once you have that, you follow it and change it to improve it, and then you start to measure it. The third thing is this, that the competition is so high today that you cannot only work with relation-based sales. You have to combine relation-based sales with value-based sales and solution-based sales in order to get that traction and diversify yourself. So if you're focusing on that and these steps here, then you will have a much higher probability to succeed. That is really the end and the summary of the presentation today. Any questions? I see we have one here.
Erik, we got a handful of questions. Thank you so much. This was super informative. Really appreciate it. All right, so I'm going to take a step. I'm just going to start going down the questions.
Great.
So, what are the current trends in the staffing industry that we should be aware of?
A lot of consolidation of suppliers today. Okay. And we see this go in and out, right? But we've had a little bit of a downturn in the industry in 2022, 23, and 24. And I think those 3 years combined, I think the industry in North America has gone down about 20 to 25%. So we're seeing a consolidation of staffing companies in the industry. Of course, another thing is that we're seeing a lot more artificial intelligence, right? Integration of advanced technologies like AI. We see more remote interviewing things. We see a shift towards remote workforce that are at the other side of the globe today. The one thing that a lot of people are talking about is the growing gig economy, but that hasn't really moved into the MSP areas yet, not as strongly as one would think. But I would say three things: tougher to get into MSPs and do business, consolidation of the companies, staffing companies, and also the technology that is moving in its own way and are making a lot of shifts in our industry. Those are the three big ones right now.
Yeah, no, thank you, Erik. And I think this kind of goes into our next question, in regards to, what are some of the effective sales strategies for acquiring new clients in the staffing industry? And then,
yeah, I think first, right, so combine value-based, solution-based, and relation-based sales. The second thing is this, that you need to position yourself as a strategic workforce partner today, rather than just a generic vanilla vendor. And you need to work on smart incentives as well. Volume-based pricing, exclusive agreements, and also make sure that when you target your groups, target them in buckets or compartmentalize. So we still see some growth industries, healthcare, technology, etc., where you can expand with a niche. But that would really be the key things, right? So see yourself as a strategic workforce partner, combine value-based sales with relation-based sales and solution-based sales, work on smart incentives, focus on high-growth industries, and thrive in the niche that you are in with a clear value statement and a clear value proposition. That would be the top 5 in, just 30-second answer.
Thank you, and I agree 100% with you. So we got another question. are MSPs for larger multi-location companies? And then it goes on,
Yes.
this wouldn't be
Well,
practical. Yeah.
So
It's
yes and no. It depends. The largest MSPs today have about 12 to 15 billion dollars in revenue, and they're all over the world. Amazon, Ericsson, for example, they have a huge MSP. Their ones is self-managed, right? But that doesn't really say that you as a supplier needs to be in all 172 countries. It just say that they can then have one holistic view to see where are they growing with temporary consultants. Maybe it's time to hire. So they're slowly moving into total talent management. These large ones, they're not many of them. 80% are still local or pan geographical between Europe, the US, and sometimes Asia as well. But the ones between Europe and US are quite common. And so yeah, there are tons of them that are that has in multi countries, right? Now, when you are a company such as Capgemini or Accenture, you're trying to say to a client that you want to be in every country, but they have a completely different solution and a completely different delivery. The MSP is predominantly for time and material or local statement of work. So even if the client has a global MSP, it might not be the case for the supplier to be everywhere, as said. So there is a distinction there. The smallest MSPs that I've seen, they've had about 1 to 1.5 million in spend. So you have that to $1.5 million in spend up to 10, 12 billion dollars in spend. So you have the whole spectrum. The MSP solution is not really necessarily needed to be mapped to size.
Thank you, Erik. No, that was really helpful. And that kind of, it's a perfect segue into another question. So, you kind of touched on this already, but how can we differentiate our staffing services from competitors in today's market?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, when you defined your unique mission and vision and your core values, and you highlighted these things as they set you apart, that was kind of good enough. And we are not there anymore. The number one thing today is really to be a niche supplier in a very specific area or a very specific group. And we're seeing that some MSPs, they are consistently struggling with finding scarce tech resources still today. So being the niche and being a niche supplier is your number one competitive edge today.
No, thank you. And this is a good one. Would you be able to join our company as an advisor or consultant?
Yeah, today I do consulting. I'm currently writing a book in cost savings as well. But yeah, you could reach out to David or to myself if you would like to speak to me, or if I can help you in any way, shape, or form. Of course.
No, thanks. Do you have? Is there any way? Sorry, I didn't know. Do you have your contact information we could pull up on the screen so we could have it, so people can know how to get over here?
Let's see.
Is it on the next slide?
Here?
Okay, right there.
In the lower right corner. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. So there is a link, I think, on the invite to LinkedIn if you prefer that.
Right, let me see. I think we covered it. Does anybody else have any other questions before we wrap this up? I think I got to all. Perfect. Well, Erik, we can't thank you enough for obviously this valuable information, especially in today's marketplace. We appreciate you as an industry friend. This was super valuable. I mean, I got a handful of notes. You know, I'm always learning. So thank you so much, and can't wait for your book. When do you think that's going to be finished up?
I'm not really sure. I've actually sent it to the publishing company, and they are reviewing it later this month. So I think it may be going to be the fall or next spring. It takes such a long time, but I felt it had a higher credibility to go with a publishing company instead of doing it just on my own. So to be continued.
I love it. We'll definitely have to have you back on once the book's complete. But Erik, on behalf of everyone in advance, we greatly appreciate you, and thank you again. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too. Thank you, everyone. Bye.